Hello everyone and welcome back to ThursDev. I am, as always, your host Luke, and today I'd like to talk about the wonders of modern technology and how live ops in a game make it even easier now than ever before to make informed decisions on how your players behave. I've said in various videos in the past that user feedback is extremely useful, and that should really be a given in game development since your consumers are ultimately who decide whether your game will be successful or fail. Even small decisions in some cases can be very impactful, and once you get into the mindset of a game developer, it can be difficult at times to truly be able to anticipate the layman's perception of a game and its components. Of course, verbal and written feedback is a valuable resource, but the problem with sorting through player feedback is that often players don't do it very well, and you're also likely to get information from a much too small sample size to be of actual use to you. It very quickly becomes an example of the squeaky wheel getting the grease, even when the issue being cited in many cases isn't even noticed or, even worse, preferred by the general playing population. So what is the solution to get useful, large-scale user feedback that's also high enough quality to really action on? Analytics, of course. One of the greatest tools that we have in a now perpetually internet-connected landscape of video games is the ability to gather analytics, or metrics, from our player bases, following our players' play patterns and gathering information in order to better improve our own designs, balance, and to refine. I spoke at length about metrics in my Following the Meta video a few months back. One thing to note about the gathering of general play data that's often lacking, however, is the ability to compare results with other scenarios. Sometimes all we really need is to know how players are interacting with what we've given them, and that's fine. General analytics do that. But what about when we want to know which option out of many is best for our player base? It can be extremely impractical to continually change your mechanics and testing it against your players. So I say, why not both? Providing different versions of the game experience to your players is a popular modern way to see which way works best. For some things, that's as simple as implementing both and giving players the option to toggle, but there are some things that this doesn't quite work for, like in your fatui, which I spoke about 3 weeks ago, or before a player even picks up your game. In some cases, we also don't want to be quite as obvious. We want the game to be a directed experience, but we're not sure which directed experience will test better. How do we accomplish our goal in these situations? If you work in web design, marketing, or business intelligence, you may already be familiar with the concept of A/B testing. The simple explanation of an A/B test is that a sampling of users are flagged to have their game experience modified in some way or another, which are then compared against a control. At times there are many groups, but the principle is always the same. Each version changes something specific in the game, and through the magic of analytics data collection, the developer and/or publisher can infer some useful information about the game and player preference. It may sound like a crazy idea perhaps in the context of a video game. The idea of releasing a separate SKU of your game and asking players to test it for you is hard to palate and very impractical. But thanks to advances in analytics technology, there are a number of solutions available in the current game development space that allow you to dynamically alter the game experience for select groups of players in what's known as an A/B test, which is becoming more and more convenient in the day of modern live ops tools. Let's take a look at a very common practical example. In the marketplace, a first impression is critical, so that means that your application's key art and icon are something that you should be looking at very closely. Though the iOS App Store doesn't, to my knowledge, natively support this, the Google Play console has an A/B testing system that will allow you to test various icon designs, featured screenshots, or promo graphics. While these A/B tests are live, some players will see one app icon, and others will see another. The ratios tend towards 50-50, so there's even a good chance that if you logged into the store with two different devices, say your smartphone and your PC, you may even see different icons for the same game. This is a great way for marketing to gauge which icons test the best with potential players. The icon that gets the most taps and highest download rate is inferred to be more attractive. The larger the sample size, the more confidence one can have in the accuracy of the test. If you happen to be in one of its soft launch countries, Brawl Stars, the new 3-on-3 multiplayer action game by Supercell, at least on the first few days of its release, appeared to have been conducting an A/B test on which control scheme players responded best to, by giving some players the virtual controller control scheme and others the tap and drag scheme during the Fatui. One could infer by how well players in each bucket perform in the first few bot matches of the Fatui how intuitive each control scheme is. And if one or the other had a particularly high churn rate, or players tended to switch from that one to the other and stay there, it'd be a good indicator that the opposite is better for early user experience, or that the underperforming control scheme may even need an overhaul or to be scrapped altogether. An A/B test can really be conducted around any aspect of the game, visual, mechanical, or whatever else it is that you as the creator need information about. Some may require some help from external sources. Certain marketplaces won't allow the use of A/B testing or just don't have the infrastructure to create one. But when and where you can, the data that one can learn is wide-reaching and potentially very valuable. It should be noted, however, that it's far from an exact science. It's not reading tea leaves, but unless there's a truly dramatic result, it's hard to really say with any certainty whether the player base that you randomly selected is truly diverse enough to give you the data that you need, or if they're just randomly disproportionately predisposed towards one option or another. Data should be taken with a grain of salt, and you should try to get as large and varied a sample size as possible, because that's how you get good data. But too much skepticism helps nobody, and it's always worth making use of what data you can collect. That's the way of analytics in general. So unless you believe that you're a visionary game developer who knows absolutely everything that their players want without question, then maybe consider making use of your ability to gain information from your players' play habits through the curation of different play experiences. There are plenty of SDKs available out there now that you can integrate into your project that will help you to do the job and gather the data that you want simultaneously. Remember, you're probably not perfect. Sometimes you'll be wrong, maybe even a lot of the time, but using every tool at your disposal to mitigate and to understand when you're wrong, how wrong you are, and why you're wrong is what makes you improve. And that's it for me today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of ThursDev and that you found it entertaining, educational, enlightening, or any of those things. If you're interested in joining this little community of game enthusiasts who both love the playing and the making of video games, consider subscribing to our channel so that YouTube might deign to deliver some of our videos to your inbox from time to time. Even if you don't though, I'm glad that you took the time to join us anyway, and I hope that you'll visit again soon. Thank you once again, and take care.